Alrighty, so I believe this is now match week number 30 in the MLS season as we are heading into the stretch run. And what's kind of interesting is that in this middle of the week, and that of course is next week, that is, we do have some Leeds Cup action, and there's going to be four MLS teams that is going to be in those Leeds Cup action. And it'll be very interesting to see whether or not if those four teams are going to probably rest their guys against their Liga MX foes. Consider the Leeds Cup are now in the knockout stage, and this is where we're probably going to, well, actually, it's not probably, but we are going to review every single game from now on, all the way up to the final, including the third place match, which, normally the third place match doesn't seem like that much in the Leeds Cup, but it is a CONCACAF Champions Cup spot up for grabs if you win that third place spot. So yeah, for those who are wondering in terms of what I'm going to do with the Leeds Cup, with the way that the Leeds Cup is coming back on Wednesday, well, I'm going to basically do a review of all those games, and then of course eventually do the review of the final. But with that being said, let us actually talk about this 15 game action. We have pretty much majority of the game happening on Saturday night, but we do have a triple header in terms of the Sunday game, and I'm actually going to be going to one of the triple header for the Sunday game as well. But we begin with the 7 games that starts at 7:30 p.m. Eastern kickoff. So yeah, there's going to be at one point there's going to be 10 games that's going to be happening at the same time. I have no idea how I'm going to keep track of it. There's going to be most of these games I'll probably have to rely on watching highlights. But the first one is Toronto versus Columbus. So Columbus, they are one of the few teams that haven't been in action for a while now. In fact, between them and NYCFC are the two teams that haven't been in action for a while. So we'll see whether or not if they can get themselves back to match fitness, especially back to Leeds fitness or fitness with the way that they're back in league play for the first time since exiting in the Leeds Cup. Now they're going to be facing against a Toronto team that, as I said, the thing about this TFC side is that this is a team that you should not take lightly whatsoever. I mean, Philly kind of learned the lesson hard in the last game of kind of leaving this TFC side throughout the games, and that when you don't put away this TFC opponent, yeah, they're gonna find a way to fight and scrap their way to get themselves a point, and that's gonna be something that I think Columbus will be worried about. But in terms of the record, 12-8, and actually I wrote the wrong uh record for the loss here, so let me just correct that real quick. I said 12-8 and 15. That's obviously incorrect. But it's 12-8 and 5. That is the record for Columbus. Whereas for TFC, they have a 5-7 and 13 record. In terms of the all-time meaning, 15-9 and 12 in favor of Columbus. So again, in theory, you would say that Columbus should easily win this one. But again, this is a Toronto side that have given trouble to even some of the best team in the Eastern Conference. And I've always said this before with TFC, and really for some of these teams that is near the bottom of the Eastern Conference. Some of these teams in the bottom of the Eastern Conference you shouldn't be taking lightly. Yes, some of these teams are not having great season whatsoever, but for these teams, even though they're kind of in see you next season mode, a lot of these teams are still going to have players that it is playing hard because they're fighting for jobs heading next season. There could be a chance that there could be some movement for a lot of these bottom feeder team, and guys are going to continue to play hard because they want to still stay with this roster or maybe impress their future employee in terms of how they played down the end of the season. So yeah, it's definitely a no gimme when it comes to these top teams face against these teams that are near the bottom of the standings. Now, moving on, we got Orlando versus Sporting KC. So, unfortunately for Sporting KC, they're starting to slowly drift into that category to join with St. Louis and the Galaxy as the two Western Conference teams that's in CU next season mode. The Western Conference playoff race is definitely much more tighter than what we see in the East. I think there's only like one team that is still within touch distance of the playoff race, whereas the West pretty much almost every single team except for St. Louis and the Galaxy are still within. Though Sporting KC, as I said, they're kind of joining into that category of CU next season because they have not played well lately, and it doesn't help the fact that they're facing against an Orlando City side that has all the momentum heading into this one after getting that big emotional win against Inter Miami. And as the old saying goes, when you get a big emotional win like this, it's gonna be interesting to see whether or not if you can follow that up in the next game as well. Because believe it or not, more times or not, we have seen teams that have suffered a bit of a let down after a big emotional win that Orlando has in the last game. So we'll see whether they can take care of business against lowly SKC side. But in terms of the all-time meeting, 3-2 and 3 is the all-time meeting. Now, in the third game of the seventh game that starts at 7:30 p.m. Eastern, 4:30 p.m. Pacific, is a matchup that we also just saw on Wednesday. It's the rematch of the U.S. Open Cup quarterfinal that we saw between the Red Bulls and the Philadelphia Union. Although, if you're a Red Bulls fan, I mean, this is probably a matchup you definitely don't want to see. I mean, we talk about one team that seems like they have ownage over the other team. Right now, the Union just simply have ownage over the Red Bulls. I mean, you have to go back. I think 2018 is the last time the Red Bulls have been able to get a win against the Union. The Union has absolutely dominated this head-to-head meetings lately, and that include them once again knocking out the Red Bulls in the quarterfinal in a game where the Red Bulls twice led that game, twice below the lead in quick succession, and then in classic Red Bulls fashion, they decided to choke the the tie by giving up a late goal in the 89th minute to lose that quarterfinal matchup. Now the Union, they have a 15, and again I wrote the wrong record again. I don't know why I keep writing the wrong record here for some of these teams. So let me just correct that real quick as well. Yeah. So yeah, the Union actually have a 15-6-5 record in terms of all-time meaning 20, 12, and 13 in favor of the Union. And again, that ownership the Union has had against the Red Bulls is the reason why they're starting to pull away a little bit in terms of the all-time meetings. So yeah, we'll see whether that continue this dominant that the Union has had over the Red Bulls. I mean, I've always said before, all good things eventually have to come to an end, and all narratives eventually going to come to an end. And you think maybe this might be the time where finally the Red Bulls can get a win against the Union, but we'll see whether or not if that is going to be the case in this game. Now, moving on, we got New England versus LAFC. So New England 7-7-11, whereas LAFC have a 10-7-6 record. This is the second week in a row LAFC goes to the East Coast to face against an Eastern Conference opponent after they face against Chicago in the last game. And it'll be interesting to see whether or not if Son will maybe get some more minutes. I mean, he obviously made his debut coming off the bench. We'll see whether or not if he fit enough to now actually make his first start with LAFC as well. But in terms of the all-time meeting, these teams rarely play against each other. We have a lot of interconference matchup this week. I also just noticed. I mean, this is an interconference matchup. This is an interconference matchup. These two are interconference matchup as well. These two are also interconference matchup as well. This one is an interconference matchup. So yeah, a lot of them. More than I usually see at least for a single day. That is, but yeah, LAFC, of course, have never lost to New England, and to a sense that they probably won't be losing to New England. Consider again, yes, New England did get a win in the last game to stop the bleeding, but it was against a DC side that is just as bad as they are in the standings. And when you face against an LAFC side, they know they will want to get all 3 points after unable to do so in the last game against Chicago, and we'll see whether or not if they can do so, and most importantly if Sung Min does make his debut in this one, we'll see whether or not if he can get a goal or an assist. I mean, technically he didn't register a goal or an assist, but he played a big part in terms of why LAFC got that equalizing goal, drawing that penalty, and eventually his teammate Bawang buries that penalty to get himself a 2-2 draw against Chicago. Now, moving on in the next match is the Wooden Spoon Derby, at least in the Eastern Conference, that is Montreal and DC United. So both of these teams with identical record of 4-7-15. All-time meaning 11-10-11. And unless you are a true MLS sicko like myself, that is, I don't think anybody is going to watch this. I don't think either fan base even want to watch this. I mean, I know this game probably have nil-nil written all over it, but something tells me that even in some wooden spoon derby that we've seen between two teams that is clearly in see you next season mode, it could provide some firework as well. So yeah, we'll see how this game, of course, turns out. We'll see whether if it might provide some firework or the fact that it's probably going to end in a nil-nil draw and nobody would be surprised because of it. Now, moving on, we got Inter Miami versus the LA Galaxy. So Miami with a 12-6-5 record, whereas the Galaxy 3-7-15. And I say this is a wooden spoon derby. Technically, it isn't true because the team that currently have the wooden spoon is the defending MLS Cup champion. So the defending MLS Cup champion might become the first team to ever win an MLS Cup, following the very next year by winning the wooden spoon. I mean that is just some wild spot and something that I didn't think was possible to achieve. But hey, the Galaxy have definitely yeah done so, and it feels like they're going to continue that route of potentially winning the wooden spoon because I think that's me they're probably punting this game away. They know though what is left to salvage this season. The Leeds Cup is definitely what's left for them. They're putting all their eggs in one basket in terms of the Leeds Cup that is, and facing against an Inter Miami side that also have Leeds Cup action as well. I'm also interested to see whether or not if Miami might rest some guys. Probably not, because this is Inter Miami after all. Javier Mascherano and previous head coach that Inter Miami has usually doesn't rest too much of guys. Though it is important to know that Messi is available to return in this game. We'll see whether or not if he's gonna start straight away. I mean, if I was Marciano, I probably wouldn't start Messi. I would probably just have him come off the bench, considering he just came back from the injury that he suffered against Necaxa, and in a game that yes, they are still fighting for a supporter shield race right now. But the thing is, they got a much more important game on Wednesday, and that is a game that I talk about the Galaxy need to prioritize their game against Pachuca. I think Miami will also need to prioritize their game against Tigres because yeah, Inter Miami out of all the team that is remaining in Liga MX right now, I think Miami probably got the toughest out of the draw out of all the team. I mean, some might say Toluca is a tough team as well, but Tigres is the team that again, there's just something about Tigres and the team that can always find ways to beat MLS sides. So that's going to be a daunting task for Inter Miami to have to face. So again, we'll see whether or not if both of these teams are going to rest guys, considering what's going to happen with both of these teams playing the Leagues Cup. But in terms of the all-time meeting, 1-1 and 0 in favor of the LA Galaxy. Now moving on, we got another rare interconference matchup between Charlotte versus RSL. This game is so rare that this is only the second meeting between both of these teams. But Charlotte have a 13-2 and 11 record, whereas RSL have a 9-4 and 12 record. And the only meeting between both of these teams was a win for RSL as well. And both of these teams are kind of in similar situation, at least where they are in the table. I mean, for Charlotte, they have been on red hot form lately, have got themselves back into the playoff picture. Well, not just in the playoff picture, but now actually above the red line right now, and look like a team that could rise up in the Eastern Conference. Whereas for RSL, they're a team that also been in a pretty good run of form. They did had a bit of a hiccup in the last game, but we'll see how they will do in this one against a Charlotte team that, like I said, it feels like Dean Smith side has find that groove that they were in the beginning of the season, where that was supposed to be the Charlotte team that I was expecting this season to be a dark horse team. That or well, actually, not even just a dark horse team, but a team that could be a contender in the Eastern Conference as well. Now, moving on to the 8:30 p.m. Eastern to 10:30 p.m. Eastern start. So now moving to some of the Central time zone and also the late West Coast game that is. We start off with Minnesota versus the Seattle Sounders. So I already mentioned before last week how the last team that Minnesota needs to face now, and as they're going through probably the toughest stretch that they've been going through this season, is against the Seattle freaking Sounders. I mean, this is a team that I'm pretty sure the Seattle Sounders they want revenge after what happened when they lost for the very first time against Minnesota at Lumen Field, and right now they're an absolute wagon right now. 11-8-6. They've been destroying their opponent left and right in the last couple of games. Whereas for Minnesota, like I said, this is the last team that they want to face because this is probably the roughest patch of form that they've been in. They've lost three straight games. I mean, technically they have lost two straight with one draw because they did lose in the PK shot against Club America, but I'm gonna count that as a loss as well. It's three straight loss. It's the first time that we see Eric Ramsey's side have suffered that bit of losing skid all season long, and especially with the way that the transfer window and the signing is still not there from this team. And now it seems like Eric Ramsey is getting very frustrated with the front office because of the lack of signing. Yeah, things are not looking so well in the Loons fan base, and I am concerned as well. I've said before that they really need to make the signings to get them to the next level. I mean, I still think that this is going to be a team that make it to the playoffs, but for a team that I expect to progress into the next level after last season as well, this doesn't seem like it's that case. It just feels like this is the season where it's going to be similar to last season, where maybe they'll win one playoff game, and then the very next round they'll probably lose and can't get past the second round. But in terms of the all-time meaning, 14-2 in favor of Seattle. Like I said, I talk about the Red Bulls dominating, or the Union dominating the Red Bulls. That is, it's the same thing for Seattle. Though again, Seattle did lose to Minnesota in the last time. It was the first time that the Loons finally got a resort against the Sounders at Lumen Field, but that's only the second time that they were able to do so, because the other 16 times, that is, including 14 of them, have all come into L. And believe me, I witnessed one of the L's that Minnesota took against Seattle last year at Allianz Field. Now, moving on, we got Chicago versus St. Louis. So Chicago 10-6-9, whereas St. Louis is 5-6-14. All-time meaning 2-0-1 in favor of the Chicago Fire. I'm kind of surprised that this is not considered to be even a bigger rivalry, considering, anytime when you have Chicago play against St. Louis in any other sports, it's always a rivalry. The Cubs and the Cardinals are always rivals. The Blues and the Blackhawks and the NHL are considered rival. I guess because of the fact that this is two teams that in different conference, it doesn't kind of make that as big of a rivalry, and that's why St. Louis, of course, have that rivalry with Sporting KC as well. But nevertheless, should be a very interesting matchup because, for Chicago, they need to get home wins. I mean, this is a team that have struggled all season long at home. Their lack of wins at home is going to really cost them, and might be the reason why they might not finally end that playoff drought, which is the longest that any team has had. Whereas for St. Louis, I mean, the last game they definitely played like a St. Louis side from the expansion season. Question is that going to be the team that will show up again, or is that just a flash in the pans? Because we've seen this before, where some teams maybe have a throwback to when they were really good, and then the very next game it's back to the old standards, there's a reason why they are in CU next season mode, and pretty much been in CU next season mode since the middle of June as well. Now, moving on, we got Austin versus FC Dallas. So this is another Copa Tijas matchup where Austin would love to forget what happened in the last Copa Tijas matchup, where they looked like they were on their way to get all 3 points, only to choke that away in the last 10 minutes, blowing a 2-0 lead. Now they're facing against a Dallas team that have a 7-7-11 record. All-time meaning, yeah, Dallas has done much better in this Copa Tijas meeting compared to Austin. They have a 7-3-2 record in this Copa Tijas meeting over Austin. And quite frankly, Dallas, they have been a little bit inconsistent lately, but it is trending in the right direction. Where this team was kind of in a free fall back in June and July, but it seems like Peter Quill has riding this ship a little bit. Though we'll see whether or not that continues. Consider they're right in the mix of the playoff race, whereas for Austin, they're trying to stay above the red line, and especially Nico Estevez facing against his former team. See how he's gonna do there. But either way, should be very interesting to see how this latest Copa Tijas is going to look. I don't really have the Copa Tijas standing with me, and that's kind of a shame because I usually always talk about these kind of regional rivalry as I've done in the last couple of years. But I'll probably really mention a little bit of that when I do the review of this game and the other games that I'm about to finish talking about in terms of match week number 30. Now, moving on, we got Colorado versus Atlanta United. So this game is the only 9:30 p.m. Eastern, 6:30 p.m. Pacific start. Colorado have a 9-6-11 record, whereas Atlanta has a 4-10-11 record, and I believe the Rapids are above the red line right now. I think they're currently in eighth place right now in the standings. There's no doubt that when you look at the standings and where the playoff line is, yeah, it's definitely much easier to make it to the playoffs in the West compared to what we see in the East. I mean, in the East, there's definitely a bit of a higher benchmark and a higher points total that you can clearly see that a bunch of these teams that is in the West that is sitting in the 8th or 9th spot right on the bubble, those teams definitely will have no shot of making the playoffs in the East. And that's, again, another example of why I think the East is definitely much stronger than the West. It's been that way for the past couple of years. I always feel like the East has been much stronger. Yes, the West has some good team out there, but compared to the East and the fact that when you look at the last couple of MLS Cup. I mean, I say that, but I did remember the Galaxy did beat the Red Bulls in that MLS Cup, that is. But that was kind of in one that was kind of out of the norm because last year the Eastern Conference just kind of felt like there was a nuke that dropped on the Eastern Conference. A first round where we thought that it was going to be a bloodbath turns to be just an upset frenzy that we saw in the East that I don't think we're probably going to see it again this season as well. But nevertheless, going back to this meeting as well, I mean, for the Rapids, this is another chance to get a win as well. The one thing about the Rapids that's been very frustrating, and I'm pretty sure Rapids fan can relate it, they're a very inconsistent team. They are one of the most inconsistent team this season. A team that they perform well against Minnesota, and we know that they have the ability to perform like that throughout the season, but it just hasn't happened every single game. And then there's even one night where they look like a team that shouldn't be anywhere close to being a playoff contender, let alone above the playoff line as well. So it's all about which Colorado team will show up in this one against Atlanta. I mean, in many ways, even if bad Colorado team show up in this game against Atlanta, could maybe get some points because, like I said, for Atlanta, this is a team that has been an absolute disaster, and this is a team that will definitely be studying of what in the world has gone wrong, and especially when we finally do start moving forward series episode of teams that is eliminated. Atlanta is definitely one team that I'll definitely talk about of just how they're a classic example of money can't buy success, and when you don't get the right pieces and don't scout the right players to fit your system, then yeah, you end up of what Atlanta has in this season. I mean, they're truly the off-season champion that just completely crash and burn as the regular season began. Now, moving on, we got the Portland Timbers versus FC Cincinnati. So this is the Evander derby. So Evander, of course, going back to his former team, I'm pretty sure he's probably going to get a pretty good reception at Providence Park when he's introduced. I mean, why wouldn't Timbers fan decide to welcome back Evander in the stadium. But yeah, the Timbers have a 10-7-8 record, whereas Cincinnati has a 15-4-7 record. And also, for those of you think that I'm actually being serious, no, that was maybe a little bit of sarcasm. But in terms of the all-time meeting, 2-1-0 in favor of FC Cincinnati. Again, this is a matchup that usually just don't see it happen very often because it's an interconference matchup. So yeah, we'll see how this game is going to do, and especially we'll see whether or not if Evander will perform well against his former team. I mean, he's probably motivated. I mean, you're facing against your former team, a team that you kind of burn bridges with them throughout this off season, and he'll definitely be serenaded in terms of the booze that will be getting throughout this game. Though for the Timbers, they'll probably want some revenge in this one as well. They want to play well, and especially they're facing against a team that literally had the main man just kind of walk out on them this all season. So yeah, it should be a very fascinating game to see. I will say that Cincinnati is probably going to be the favorites, consider this is one of the best road teams, if not the best road team, this season as well. Now, moving on to the Sunday triple header, we start off with the first game of the triple header being NYCFC versus Nashville. So this game starts at 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific. NYCFC have an 11-5-8 record. Nashville has a 14-5-7 record. All time meeting 3-2 in favor of Nashville SC. And for Nashville, coming off of probably one of the worst performances that they played this season against St. Louis City. We'll see whether or not if they can bounce back. I really think that was just kind of a there. I don't think there should be too much concern in the Nashville fan base, even though I know some fans might freak out immediately when they see a resort that just completely gone south when this is a team that has been pretty much been winning a lot throughout the season. But it's not going to be easy because they're facing against an NYCFC side that we know this season they've been good at home, and we also know that when they're playing at home against good teams, they usually do well against them. There's just something about NYCFC this season when they play against good opponent that they somehow find way to win those games. It's the lowly opponents that is the issue that NYCFC is having this season when they're playing at home. So don't be surprised that this might be another upset, and that again, if Nashville doesn't perform well again, maybe there will definitely be some concern. But again, NYCFC is another team that is trying to fight for to try to stay above the red line. And again, home form is probably going to be the reason why they'll stay above the red line, and they'll need to do something that again they for whatever reason this team does well against good teams at home this season, and they'll fancy themselves that they can knock off Nashville, especially maybe see what St. Louis did and what kind of formula they did and replicate that and hope to get a big win in this game. Now, moving on to the second game of the triple header is the game that I'm going to, and it's actually the Sunday night soccer game. So it's kind of weird the fact that you have a triple header on Sunday, and the game right smack in the middle of the triple header is deemed as the marquee matchup. Usually, you would expect it's the last game that it is, or you probably could have just done a double header in terms of the Sunday night soccer action. But no, it seems like MLS decided that this is the key matchup. Kind of an interesting one because it is the San Jose Earthquakes versus San Diego. I mean, I get the reason why it's probably a marquee matchup is that anytime when you a California kind of battle between two California teams, you could kind of consider that to be a rivalry. And especially, I'm surprised, California teams don't do something that Texas team does, which is kind of create like a Copa Tejas, because I feel like that would be something that would be good to create for these four California team. But nevertheless, this is actually the first ever meeting between these two California team. I believe this is one of the last team that San Diego play in the against a Western Conference foes. That this is the first ever meeting. It's hard to believe it's taken till August now that the Quakes finally get to play against San Diego. But yeah, in this Sunday night soccer game, it's an for the Quakes, it's 8-8-10, whereas San Diego is 15-4-7, and this game starts the usual time for the Sunday night soccer game, 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. Even though it's called Sunday night soccer, it's pretty much just an afternoon game that is at PayPal Park. And yeah, I mean, I don't just like what I said about Minnesota facing against Seattle. I don't expect too much from this game for the Quakes because I know San Diego is a machine this season. And even when San Diego is not playing well, they're still getting resort. That's just a sign of a team that is really good this season and a team that is getting pretty close to that points record for an expansion team that LAFC has. And I might even make a video talk about it, and there's no doubt that I do think that they're gonna eclipse it with the amount of points that they've already got and the amount of games left. It's gonna be a matter of time before they eclipse it. Though we'll see whether or not if that mark will be a step closer against this Quake side. That yeah, they got a much needed win in the last game against Vancouver, albeit in a very controversial way, and they'll probably might need some help from the referee in this game as well because again, for the Quakes, I know that win in the last game is big, but they need to continue these kind of games, especially facing against tough opponent. They have a very tough schedule to finish up the season, and especially even though they're above the red line right now, because teams below them still have games in hand, and that they don't control their own destiny in the playoffs. Yeah, the window is still relatively close for the Quakes to make it to the playoffs. But if there's one thing that I might have some optimism, especially if they can beat San Diego in this one and start beating again some good team as well, is the fact that so far in the West, it's kind of something similar to what we saw in the East. I think was it last season or 2 years ago, where it just feels like nobody wants to get those playoff position. It feels like there's a lot of inconsistency that's going on in the West, and thus that's the reason why the points total to get into the playoffs in the West is so much lower compared to what we see in the East. So again, if the Quakes can get on a good run, they can stay far away from the red line because teams around them is going to draw points week in and week out as well, because a lot of these teams that is fighting for playoff position has just simply been very inconsistent and haven't been able to separate the group. Now, moving on into the last game, we got Vancouver versus the Houston Dynamo. So Vancouver 13-6-6, whereas the Dynamo is 7-7-11. And again, Houston is kind of in the mix as well, but they're kind of almost on the back end of being in the mix and kind of hanging on by a thread. But this game will start at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. The good thing about this is that for these triple header game, because this one is smack down right in the middle, when I drive to the stadium, I'll probably listen to this one, and then when I drive home, I'll listen to this game as well. So there's not going to be a situation where I might not have a chance to go to the stadium and not have a chance to watch other MLS action. This is also one of the reasons why I chose to go to this game, because anytime when the Quakes are playing in the standalone game where no other games is happening, which is a very rare occurrence for this team, I would absolutely would want to go and attend the game, and this is definitely a great opportunity to do so. And not to mention, this is still also part of the 5 game package that I bought when the Quakes introduced that as part of the Inter Miami festivity. But yeah, in this game between Vancouver and the Houston Dynamo, in terms of the head-to-head meeting, 11-6-10 in favor of the Whitecaps. It starts at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. We'll see whether or not if this is indeed going to be the debut of Thomas Muller. I don't think he's uh training just yet with the Vancouver Whitecaps. I mean, they're still doing the press conference. That is, eventually you probably will start to get some training. And that, we'll see whether or not if this might be the game to do so. I still think it maybe is too soon. I think maybe one more game before we might see the debut of Thomas Muller. But I would also wouldn't be surprised if they decide to do it in this game as well. I mean, you're playing at home in this game, and especially in a crowd that I expect there probably could be a big crowd in this one. If there is a hint that Thomas Muller could make a debut as well, wouldn't be surprised if Vancouver might even open the second deck, because again, the hype surround Thomas Muller coming to MLS is definitely just as big as Sung Min coming to LAFC, and especially for this Whitecaps fan base that's been dying for this moment to see. This is by far the most marquee signing that the Vancouver Whitecaps have ever had in their franchise history. I think there's no doubt that if they're going to make a debut, why not do it in this game, especially if there's going to be potentially a big crowd for this game as well. But there you have it. That is pretty much it for the preview of all 15 of these games. As always, let me know in the comments below what do you think of this preview. And as always, let me know in the comments below your prediction for all 15 of these games. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys leave a like, smash the subscribe button. And yeah, I of course will see you guys next time.